Together with the Transnational Solidarity Network, Women Living Under Muslim Laws of WLUM, we are pleased to welcome you to our inaugural webinar, Centering Women Negotiating Peace in Afghanistan, one of a series of four which form an integral part of WLUM's campaign, No Peace Without Women's Rights, to support women's demands for meaningful participation in the Afghan peace process. This campaign is aimed at supporting the work of women in Afghanistan and bringing awareness of the issues implicated. It highlights the political contingency of rights, the fragility of freedom, and the precarity of peace. This campaign speaks to our common humanity and underscores the important work of women's human rights defenders as they contribute to peace, justice, and democracy and speak truth to power. I take this opportunity to say a few words about the Center for Human Rights and Legal Pluralism. It is a focal point for innovative legal and interdisciplinary research dialogue and outreach on issues of human rights and legal pluralism. The center's mission is to provide students, professors, and the wider community with a locus of intellectual and physical resources for engaging critically with law's impact on some of the compelling issues of our times. Women Living Under Muslim Laws is a transnational feminist solidarity network that promotes human rights and gender justice and equality for people whose lives are shaped, conditioned, or governed by patriarchal and or authoritarian interpretations of Islam. Ulum recognizes that women's struggles are interconnected and complementary, and therefore has a commitment to transnational solidarity and the promotion of human rights both within and outside Muslim contexts. Ulum promotes plural democracy and actively endorses plurality and autonomy, recognizing and valuing a diversity of opinions. We are honored to have here with us today Her Excellency Roya Rahmani, Afghanistan's ambassador to the United States, Her Excellency Ms. Shukria Barakzai, former member of the Afghan Parliament, Dr. Sima Samar, former Minister for Women's Affairs of Afghanistan, and Professor Homa Hoodfar, a board member of WLUML. I will briefly introduce our speakers and then go on to give a few housekeeping notes about the format of today's session. Roya Rahmani is an Afghan diplomat and the first female Afghan ambassador to the United States. She has served in this role since December 2018. Ms. Rahmani was born in Kabul in 1978, a year before the Soviet troops invaded Afghanistan. She spent her early years there before fleeing with her family to Pakistan in 1993 to escape the civil war. We are delighted that Ambassador Rahmani has a McGill connection. She was awarded a World University Service of Canada scholarship to study at McGill University, where she completed a bachelor's degree in software engineering. After graduating, she returned to Afghanistan and worked for a number of nonprofits focusing on human rights, women's empowerment, and education. She returned to university as a Fulbright scholar, completing a master's degree in public administration and international law at Columbia University. Ambassador Rahmani joined the Afghan Ministry of Foreign Affairs as senior advisor to the Deputy Foreign Minister in 2011. From 2012 to 2016, she served as the first Director General for Regional Cooperation, during which time she developed and spearheaded important regional cooperation initiatives. And regional cooperation and integration remain key elements of the Afghan government's roadmap to peace. Dr. Sima Samar, a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, renowned human rights advocate, she has dedicated her life to public service, humanitarian work, and women's empowerment. She is the past chairperson of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, having served in that position for around 17 years. She has so many important accomplishments. I'm just going to name a few. She was the vice president of the interim administration of Afghanistan and served as the first minister of women's affairs. She served as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Sudan between 2005 and 2009 and has been appointed as a member of the United Nations Secretary General's High-Level Advisory Board on Mediation. She founded an NGO, the Shada Organization, which operates 55 middle and high schools for girls and boys in Afghanistan and 3 schools in Quetta, Pakistan for Afghan refugees. In addition, this NGO operates 12 clinics, 3 hospitals in Afghanistan, and 1 in Quetta for refugees, dedicated to providing education and healthcare, particularly focusing on women and girls. In 2020, Dr. Samar was appointed as Afghanistan's Human Rights Minister when suddenly, I believe in December 2020, the ministry was abolished or dissolved, leaving her without the position. And perhaps she can speak to us a little bit about that in her remarks. Uh, Ms. Shukria Barakzai, former ambassador to Norway, is a politician and women's rights advocate. She has held many posts and professions in her life, including teacher, journalist, editor, and head of NGOs. In 2003, her political career began when she was appointed to the Roya Jirga to pass the new constitution. In 2004, Ms. Barakzai was elected to the lower house of the National Assembly, the House of the People. She served until she was appointed as Afghanistan's ambassador to Norway in 2015, a post which she held until very recently. Her higher education was interrupted or paused until after the fall of the Taliban. Born and raised in Kabul, she went on to earn a bachelor's degree in archaeology and geology from Kabul University. Our last speaker that I would like to introduce to you is Dr. Homa Hoodfar, Professor of Anthropology Emerita at Concordia University in Montreal. Her field-based research and expertise are in political economy, legal anthropology, focusing on reproductive rights, Afghan women and youth refugees in Iran and Pakistan, women in formal and informal politics, hijab and dress codes. Describing herself as an academic in the service of civil society since the 1980s, Professor Hoodfar has been actively involved in women living under Muslim laws from its very founding. So I welcome all of you as the audience members. I welcome our distinguished speakers. Just in terms of housekeeping notes, our speakers will present remarks for about 10 to 12 minutes each, after which we will open it up for question and answers and participation to the audience. So I will open by giving the virtual floor to Professor Hoodfar for opening remarks, and I thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Usually, as an organizer, I don't get this chance. But I just wanted to start to say that welcome all our speakers. I'm very happy that in this very busy period, you made time for us. I wanted to just to point out a few quick notes about women living under Muslim laws relations with Afghan women. Part of the one of the major principles of women living under Muslim laws was anti-militarization, because we believed militarization is always bad for women, whether they are the side of the loser or the winner. History shows this. And in any case, transnational women's movement has always been twinned with peace movement. So it was very much part of it. So we work with Afghan women refugees since 1986, and I believe Sima Samar was at that time is one of the very first organizations that we had we worked with through our regional office, CHRLP, in Pakistan. And from the 90s, I worked with Afghan refugees in Iran and Pakistan, of course. But in Iran, the situation was a little bit tougher to get involved. But nonetheless, I worked on education and delivery of health and justice with Afghan women in Iran as well. And one of the issues that I want to bring to the attention is that refugee situation created incredible space, because men were at war or refugee, they had lost the normal stand that they had. So a lot of women emerged as quite strong leaders who not only managed their own family, but also the community. And I can tell you this, especially in Iran, this was incredible, because it's a very repressive society, and somehow women managed to do a lot better than men in the context of Iran. But going on, when the Taliban came to power, of course, women living under Muslim joined the transnational women's movement. We actively campaigned against recognition of Taliban then as a legitimate government. We publicized their human rights abuses at the time. And then when in 2001, when Taliban fell and the new constitution was written, at the invitation of Afghan women, we organized workshops about constitution, importance of it, what kind of rights it should be in it, and then we also had invited a whole lot of women leaders and lawyers from different Muslim majority countries so that women had an overview of what kind of constitution exists in other Muslim majorities and how they can see this within their own context. Because of course, always Islam is used to deny women their rights as though Islam is only one. So that was very important. Also, we organized a whole lot of meetings for the Afghan women leaders to go and visit other women in political contexts in Bangladesh, in Iran, in Indonesia, in Turkey, in different kind of Muslim societies. So because it was 20 years of war by that time, now it's 40, passing 40. But so Afghanistan was kind of away from a lot of changes that was happening internationally. Then, of course, we continued, especially through our human rights programs and violence is not our culture, to continue to work with Afghan women who are always very much part of the organization. And of course, I just want to leave all those things and come the day that was the 29th of February when the agreement between Taliban and US was signed. To our disbelief, even though we were following the debate, we then knew that we should take this on, because to the exclusion of women, civil society, even elected government of Afghanistan, this agreement with Taliban was a shock to many human rights workers. And so we decided to, 8th of March, we wanted to do, this is 8th of March last year, to do a big thing, but of course, pandemic happened. So it wasn't, nonetheless, we discussed this on the 8th of March that we will do this campaign as no peace without women's rights in Afghanistan. And we consulted then with Afghan leaders, many, and the different campaigns that were already being launched in Afghanistan. And by mid-June, of course, we launched the campaign, which Dr. Sima Samar was one of our first presenter in that. And so we have continued to work in this campaign. The objective of this campaign has been to provide a platform for an international platform for Afghan women to discuss their issues. And secondly, to bring human rights capacity building, but also especially through progressive Islamic interpretation of minorities and women's rights, because no one talks very much about this. And so Taliban kind of have the monopoly of saying what is Islamic and what is not, while their peculiar form of Islam is very different than what we have, all the other Muslim countries are experiencing. So this has been a very important aspect. We also to engage with UN to bring to lobby other influential governments like the EU, Canada, and US, but also Turkey, Indonesia, other Muslim countries who have an influence in this debate. The other very important factor has been that to actually bring this as a public discourse, international public discourse, because it's the influence of public, and when public are actually following these, at least in the establish democracy, it makes a difference, the pressure they can put on the government for not signing up into just to silencing gun, because peace is a lot more than silencing gun. Peace has to be with justice. And also in terms of our demands has been, of course, the women to be part of the peace building, that civil society and majority and representative of the victims and youth should be present. There's about 10 more demands, but I can see my time is up.
Yes. Thank
so
you.
I stop here.
Thank you very much, and I'll pass the mic on to Ambassador Rahmani, please. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you, Minister Samar, Ambassador Barakzai, Professor Hoodfar, Dr. Narain, and all the wonderful participants of this session, many of whom I have the honor and the privilege of calling my friends. It's really a pleasure to join you all this morning. I would like to start by thanking each one of you, and particularly the speakers at this panel, for your lifetime dedication to defending and empowering Afghan women. I have had the honor of working with each one of you and have learned a great deal along the way, especially while working with Professor Hoodfar on a number of initiatives to institutionalize women's rights within the family. Of course, it's not a surprise that I always concur with everything that she says. There is, of course, a lot going on today regarding the future of Afghanistan, how it will be charted, and whether the progress on women's rights that we have gained will be sustained. But the main question is mainly focused on how to reach a peace deal. However, we also know that a deal is not a peace. It is just one of the means of achieving peace. For peace to truly manifest and last, every member of society must play their role in working for the collective good and feel that they are invested in the future of country. This is why democracy must be preserved and every voice must be counted. Of course, the whole of society cannot be involved unless women's rights and gains are preserved. Women's rights cannot be treated just as one of the dozens of cosmetics parts of a peace deal package. There needs to be an explicit framework to ensure that women are truly treated as an equal member of society and are afforded one vote like every other citizens. So this democratic process is especially critical in a country that is divided by so many different opinions and perspectives and visions for how to chart our future. Democracy is the great equalizer in order to join society together. We must provide democratic equality across the board. One vote for every man, one vote for every woman, one vote for everyone of age. Only within this framework will Afghanistan be able to work through their differences and come together to craft a brighter future for all. Beyond the important role of women in democratic processes, the ways women are involved in peace processes, from peacemaking, which is making a deal basically, to peace building, which means crafting mechanisms to implement the deal, to peace management, maintaining peace, will directly impact whether peace will be sustainable or not. This is because of the myriad of ways that women's presence and skills foster peace in society. Just to count a few. First, women's sustainable role in peace processes both make peace more likely to be reached and also to be maintained. Second, without inclusivity, a peace deal rings hollow. Peace needs to be to account for the needs and aspiration of all citizens and create a future that's reflective of that. Third, from their support in reintegration of ex-combatant to their role in bringing together disparate parties around the dinner table, to their work on developing local economies, women are community makers. They bring societies together. Fourth, women's empowerment is a powerful tool for ending generational poverty. When women are economically engaged, they are able to help prevent their children from falling into poverty. Furthermore, as mothers, sisters, and aunts, friends, they are able to foster a culture of peace within their own households, which is critical in a country where war has permeated into the culture. Their role as leaders within the household can also effectively counter widespread effort to recruit child soldiers and all too common occurrences in Afghanistan. Finally, as the primary beneficiaries of public institutions and services, from healthcare to education to water, women can and have been playing a major role in improving their function. Those that are the most familiar with these services have the most valuable input on how to improve them. And as their primary constituents that have the power to exert pressure on them. We have already seen the benefits of women playing a role in all of these different ways. So I want to take a moment to just highlight a few of the achievements that we have had since 2001. Today we have 10 million kids in school, 40% of them are girls, while in 2001 we had 0. Furthermore, today we have a parliament that that's comprised 28% of women representatives, and women are represented and representing the country in high-level decision-making and government positions, whether it's at the ministries or the provincial governments or the provincial councils and so forth. And most importantly, there is 6,000 of them who have voluntarily signed up their names to serve in our security forces. Women work as artists, athletes, and musicians. They are enriching Afghan culture, and their presence in these fields serve as a symbol of security and budding culture of peace. Afghan society is not okay with a peace being built on the back of Afghan women. This is something that's demonstrated by data. 66% of the Afghans say they would not vote for a president who accepted a peace agreement that jeopardizes women's education, and 65% say they wouldn't accept a deal that affects women's ability to work outside of the house. This is because Afghans realize the enormous value that women add to the society. This is impressive gains. And of course, we have worked extremely hard for these. These are just a few examples. Is it enough? Not really. And what are some of the reasons, in addition to the insecurity and all the very competing and trumping one another priorities, is some of the major obstacles that women all over the world struggle with, like from access to education, to pay parity, to employment opportunities, to the cultural norm, and the assumed burden of caregiving. But now that we are in this critical point, concrete efforts must be made to ensure women are party to the peace process, not an issue at the table, and that they are an active part of the peace building efforts afterwards. How to do that? So first, women need to be actively involved in all aspects of the peace process. Their specific concerns and demands should be reflected in the deal, and they should play a decisive role in charting their own future. There's a vast swath of women in Afghanistan with expertise in finance, security, politics, and other key concerns that must be involved in crafting the way forward for the future of the country. Furthermore, women's perspectives are crucial to peace's success, not just for the sake of inclusivity and morality, but because extensive studies have shown the positive impact of women's substantive involvement at every stage of peace process. Secondly, we need to continue to implement top-down policies. Afghans broadly value women's rights, and we have a constitution and law that guarantees women's equality, but in a culture of poverty, conflict, and crisis, strategic and practical efforts must be made to tackle discrimination and prejudice from top down. And we have seen that it has worked. Of course, there are two very major priorities. Number one, for peace to work in Afghanistan, a ceasefire must be one of the initial steps so that the people on the ground, the very people that will be living with the consequences of peace, become a party to peacemaking and peace building. And second, very essential issue for the peace to work is that they also need to be to include explicit language outlining efforts on women's rights, girls' education, and other critical endeavors. We also should not pretend that women in the negotiation table or as a party to peace will be only presenting women. They are presenting their societies, their communities, and the nation. Ultimately, to prevent poverty from to prevent parties from resorting to violence as an instrument for promoting their ideas and interests, we need to ensure that we are actively peace building as we proceed. And finally, we need the continued support of the international community. Yes, the growth in Afghanistan came from Afghan women and men who implemented the change, but the international community has played a huge role, and we need them to continue to press on. It's almost becoming a cliche, but it is true that we have reached to a critical point in Afghanistan. Right now, we have an opportunity to continue building a future of peace and prosperity. How we approach women's rights and inclusion at this moment will be a determining factor in the future of our country, from our national security to our economic development to our international partnership. In Afghanistan, we have already tried having peace deals that are led exclusively by those that are party to war. Maybe it's time to try a different approach. I thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those enlightening words. It's a lot to reflect on. I can request the audience please to keep their questions in mind. We will have opportunity for Q&A after all our speakers have presented. So thank you, Ambassador Rahmani. I turn the floor now to Dr. Sima Samar, please. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and nice to see all of our friends, including Ambassador Rahmani and Shukria Barakzai, Homa John, and everybody else, you, Professor Narain. Thank you for organizing this program. First of all, I would like to say, I don't know if it's already past the Women's Day, the International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day, although it's two days after, but I think all the days belong to women. I think we should use that as our slogan. I think Ambassador Rahmani said a lot of things, but I just do not want to repeat all those what she said. But I just wanted to say that unfortunately, the situation is such that even this time when Ambassador Khalilzad came to Afghanistan last week, he had a meeting with all the men and mainly the Mujahideen leaders, whoever the powerful men, let's say, and the warlords. And then in the last, after 2 days, I don't know how many women he saw, but at least he had a Zoom meeting with me and 2 other women in Afghanistan on last Wednesday, which is a week from today. And he mentioned the points that he wanted to bring to us. I mean, at least he said that the troops, the remaining American troops, which is 2,500, will not leave on 1st of May. The second point he mentioned that the peace process in Doha in Qatar is quite slow. He said he do not want to say it's failed, but he wants to say it's too slow. Third point that he mentioned, he said that US would like to, or called on UN already in order to be more active in the peace process and be involved. Fourth, he said it will be a bigger conference of most of the people or people from Afghanistan to another country. He didn't mention the country, but I heard that it is Turkey. Fifth, he said that the Afghan constitution will stay in force until there will be a drafting constitution commission and the new constitution. Sixth, he said that women's rights and human rights would be in the document and nobody can undermine human rights and women's rights in the country, including the existence of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission. So then he asked me to respond to his comments, and I said I will start with my usual criticism to you, or critical point to you, which is you come and see the men first of all, and you don't see women. In last 2 days, you had a lot of meeting with the warlords and the powerful people or men in this country, but then you had only an hour or hour and a half with us in the Zoom. And I request him that he should have a meeting with a broad range of women, and we can prepare that. It is not a difficult issue, either by Zoom or face-to-face. But with the women in Kabul, it can be face-to-face, but with the women in the other part of the country, can be in Zoom. Although, of course, it's difficult for the women who are in the rural area of Afghanistan, but at least in the provincial capital, he can see some women. He promised, but he went to Qatar. It shows that we are not the actual player in the game, and that is sad. The reason I'm saying this, because it was same when they started with the Taliban. It was same when he went to Doha and signed the agreement with the Taliban in 29th of February 2020. And just when we began, I mean, Shukria Jan mentioned the issue of human rights, and I have been very, very critical of not having the word human rights in that 4-page document between American and Taliban. And you cannot find a word of woman in that 4-page of document, at least the one which we see. It might be annexes, but I don't think if it's not on the public document, then it must not be on the confidential annexes of that agreement. The other point that I would like to mention, that actually this agreement, and it was given a kind of a false authority to Taliban that they are the winner. And that is very sad because it's not only the American, but it's unfortunately done by a lot of other people. And other countries also, because now they're nicely, although they're still under the sanction of the United Nations, but they nicely travel everywhere and well received, well fit, and whatever you think, I mean, with kind of official delegation from the Afghan community, if not as an Afghan leaders. Of course, they are not. The third point that I would like to mention is that Taliban are the same, they have not changed. They changed this much that they are sitting with women on the table, at least, but according to our colleagues who have been in Doha, even if they see on the corridor or in the dining room, when I see some of these women, a member of the negotiation team, they're not really there to speak to them. And this shows that how much they change. And still they're killing and beating up and shooting women all over in the country. And they're closing down the girls' school and the areas which is under their control. One of the fourth point that I would like to mention is that one of the point on that agreement on 29th of February last year was the reduction of violence. Violence is not reduced. It's not reduced at all. And that time I mentioned that I was critical by saying that reduction of violence doesn't have a clear indicator. How many people should be killed in a day to say it is a reduction of violence? Unfortunately, the targeted killing and the sticky bombs kind of a new tactic is happening every day, almost every day. If not in Kabul, every day in different parts of Afghanistan. So the targeted killing of civilians and elders in civil society, women activists, or sisters who were killed only last week in Jalalabad, 3 journalists and most of the other people left that specific television or radio program in Jalalabad. So they prefer to stay at home, because when it's insecurity, even the male member of the family who are claiming to be a democratic and believe on equal rights for men and women, they are trying to stop us from going out and continue our work in different parts of the town. So I think this is the actual situation in Afghanistan. It's a lot more we can say about it. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, the increase of poverty in the country and lack of job opportunity for the youth is really another problem that they can easily, particularly the young boys, easily can be observed by criminal gangs, groups in different parts of the country. So there's more criminal acts in Kabul, particularly when they see some iPhone in your hand. It's a group of young people who just steal or take the phone, and they even shoot a person because of the iPhone. So this is a common trend, unfortunately. And of course, the main reason is poverty. The other issue which increased the poverty in Afghanistan, of course, unfortunately, is the sanction and the crisis that they have in Iran. We had a lot of laborers in Iran who were working in Iran. And now, because of the sanction in Iran and the reduction of the value of Iranian money, a lot of Afghans came back. And it was not only this, but also because of Corona, a lot came back. I was in Iran 2 weeks ago, and I saw a young Afghan boy who was working in a clinic, and he was illegally in Iran, illegal labor in Iran. he said that he was deported last year from Iran because he was caught by police. Do you hear me?
Yes.
He was caught by police and he was deported from Afghanistan, from Iran to Afghanistan, but there was no possibility for him to earn anything. So he came back, he paid the smugglers, he came back to Tehran. And now he's working in a clinic, which he said he is earning around $100 or $110 per month. He said it is better than nothing because I can live with this and I can send some to my family. So all these crises doesn't really make the environment conducive to peace process, to proper peace. Now coming back to the involvement and inclusivity of the peace, I have some recommendations that I think our sisters and our partners can support us with this. One, I think we have to learn the lessons from the previous peace processes in Afghanistan, to be which has been very exclusive, and we did not reach to any peace process. I mean, you count from Bun to the previous one, and with Najib and with the Mujahideen and all those other peace processes. With Gulbuddin Hekmatyar currently. I mean, when Gulbuddin came without any kind of accountability, now he's the one who keeps saying that he will start the fighting again. And I really raised my voice, and he was threatening, and his people was threatening me. The second point that I would like to say, that a peace process should be inclusive. Particularly, of course, women should be part of it, and minority groups should be part of it. Civil society should be part of this, and the victims of war should be part of this. If we do not have a just peace, we will not reach to a peace. We will reach to a short-term political deal, and then we will not end up with a sustainable peace. It is very clear, and there is no doubt on it. Some people are saying that yes, we have to learn from the peace process in Colombia, which is true. We can learn from that, those lessons. But I have to say that the difference between FARC and the Taliban, FARC was not in war with half of the population, which are women. I mean, they were not against women. Everybody knows that which make the process easier. And the second good thing with the FARC, with the leftist group, is that they are not using the religion and culture in order to oppress the people's rights, in order to oppress women particularly. That is not the case, unfortunately, in Afghanistan. The third recommendation that I would like to say, to ask and mention to you, is that please do continue and support the civil society in Afghanistan and women inclusion in Afghanistan, because that can be done through that work, and particularly I'm focusing on education. Through education, we can empower women and give them a self-confidence to stand and take the risk in order to fight for their rights and exercise their basic rights and live with dignity. And I think the other point that I would like to mention is that we should not really look at Afghanistan that all the women are under the burqa and all the men are with the long beard and turban and with Kalashnikov. There is a good part of the society who are educated and who believe on democracy and democratic process in Afghanistan that we achieved. We gain it with a lot of sacrifice with our partners as well. So we need to continue to support that and try to keep that. And of course, human rights, the whole process should be based on human rights approach. Otherwise, we will not reach peace. But I keep saying that in a country where there is no rights to resist, in a country where there is no woman to be able to walk and to be able to go to school and get health care, that is graveyard. We do not want to go alive in a graveyard. So we want a just peace, a peace where people can live with dignity and with basic, with all the human rights, not really only basic, because people keep saying basic human rights. And we want all the rights. We are human beings and we deserve to live with dignity and peace. The final word I would like to say is that some people keep saying that the value of human rights or Western value, and I keep saying, excuse us, it's a human value. The values of human rights do not recognize West and East, and do not recognize the boundaries, the geographic boundaries. And we should stand for that. And if we do not respect the human rights in Afghanistan, and if we do not support the stability in Afghanistan, it will reach to other countries. And that already has been shown to all of us into the history. I'll stop here. I'm sorry if I exceed my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those remarks that really go to the heart of what some of the issues are. I request the audience members to just keep their questions in mind. We will have time for question and answers in a little while. The floor now to Ambassador Barakzai. Please, Shukria Jan, go ahead. It's yours.
Thank you. Bonjour, good morning, good afternoon, Sham Bakhair. Assalamu alaikum. It's a great honor to be here with you and all the panelists, and thank you for giving me a chance to raise and to say. It's a from my point of view, the current situation as a woman was fighting, I myself, for more than 23 years of my life for women's rights. It's really hard because I believe in the entire 23 years, which is I pay the golden year of my life, there was no step forward because I have to again stand for the basic rights as at the beginning I was been asking for, or I was been standing for. And that means rights for education, equal rights for men and women. And beside of that, rule of law, human rights, freedom of expression, pluralism, such a beautiful thing, and equality. I believe a peace deal without justice, that they're ignoring more than a half of population of Afghanistan, it wouldn't lead us to a sustainable peace, even to a temporary peace. We may not achieve a peace by such a settlement where the half population was been ignored, that not been acknowledged as just simply as a citizen, as a woman being. Well, I have no complaint about the Taliban, since they show practically they don't believe women's at all, neither while there was ruling the Afghanistan or not at all right now. Among the bunch of all those men, which is some of them are looking like gangsters, there was no single woman. And that's clearly can say how and where is their belief and thoughts about the women. From my point of view, Afghanistan, the 2 decades journey, we achieved a lot. And that's the new generation of Afghanistan, which is not ready to read and having stepped back where I start for. So if I would say that, okay, guys, there'll be no school for you, you have to sit at home. It's a shocking thing. They would say, no, we won't go to school. We will love go to school. This is our rights. This is the new Afghanistan that no one is ready to understand the clear message of that. Neither the Taliban and unfortunately not our current government, because each of them are looking to the peace process as a peace project from their own political angles, not from the what peace needs to be on the ground and for the people, what this peace deal would dedicate to the people of Afghanistan. I believe current government, Taliban, jihadis, let's say ethnic leaders in Afghanistan, they will be the I would say the decision maker for the future of Afghanistan. I'm afraid of the system that after the peace deal, it will be offered to Afghanistan. Since I traveled more than 16 provinces during drafting the constitution of Afghanistan, I was not only being a member of approving the constitution, but I had the privilege to draft such a wonderful, brilliant constitution for my country. And right now, when it comes to the Islamic states, which is Taliban wants to have their own type of states, even when it comes to the Islamic states or Republic Islamic states, there are few, at least 3 models I can talk about: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran. For instance, in Afghanistan, we have the constitution that it could cover equal rights for all citizens, freedom of expressions, power sharing among the government body. Beside of that, the pluralism as a core, human rights as a principle, and of course, Islamic values as a beliefs for the society and community. And more important, equality for men and women, which is, it's a very big concern. We don't have the same in Pakistan constitution or either in Iranian constitution. We are Islamic states, but see how these terminology can change and shift the paradigm. It's just because when it comes to the Islam is not dealing with the daily issues. But unfortunately, right now they want to Islamization of everything is that much dangerous as Islamophobia, from my points of view. Right now, things are going really not pleasant. And when it comes to the peace deal with the Taliban, I'm not the one to beg my rights anymore. I'm standing for my rights as a woman being in a country which is dominated by male. There's no women political leader, even right now, and I'm sure none, or either they can be just as a piece of show, as a part of success story, or just as a piece of show, silently, quiet, sit in the corner. They don't like women to be loud and noisy. They want women just to be, again, with the same as we was back home 20 years ago. I think today Afghanistan has changed a lot. I don't want to mention all those achievements that Roya Jan was been mentioned. And I echo totally with Dr. Samar, what she was been saying. But where we are and what we can do, I think that is important because we don't have much time. International community, if we like or not, they are living. This is what they've been decided. So how we can keep at least those achievements, which is we achieved by 2 decades, treasure and humans, men and women's lives in Afghanistan, not only Afghans, but internationals. For instance, from Canada, Canadian soldiers, United States, US, Army was engaged, NATO countries was been engaged and involved. And at the end, there should be a message. Why we've been there and why we are coming out and going out and saying bye. This high bye take almost 20 years. And that 20 years was a kind of golden years in Afghanistan to develop new values in a society after war. I'm not saying most of things are new for Afghanistan. For instance, Afghanistan had the constitution during 1919, where 5 women was been engaged at that time. So like I was been like almost 85, 86 years back of those previous people to be engaged drafting the constitution for my country. So we had women as a ministers, and long ago, a member of parliament, that even most of country in the region, or even Europe, women don't have the rights to vote. I'm not saying, and I'm not want to go back to the history from where we come, but I believe the peace and war in Afghanistan is not an internal issue that everybody will wash their hand and say, okay, guys, we are leaving. This is your deal. Just deal with it. No, we are living in a time, 21st century, which is we are claiming globalization as a great value. And I believe that globalization is not only about the global, it's about each other. And I believe women and that globalization are the strong force. If that force will be ignored, and if that force will be dismissed, if that force will be marginalized from the journey of development, I think that would be such a big injustice, and that would be such a catastrophic action by all parties. I'm not saying that we like foreign troops should live forever in Afghanistan, but I'm saying that what exactly Afghanistan required to be a sustainable and to be a peaceful country. I think it's very crucial and important, first of all, to pay attention on the silent majority. Yes, we do need peace. Peace is very important in Afghanistan, but how can peace exist without justice? Is there any simple example globally, any exercise or experience of peace without justice? I think entire world cannot say that any country achieved peace without justice, which is right now is going to be peace without justice for Afghanistan. Is that peace will bring prosperity to Afghanistan, or what exactly we are talking about peace? Peace is not only about ending the war. Peace is about respecting each other as a responsible citizen. Peace is about living with harmony. Peace is respecting each other the different of ideas, gender. Peace is about the equality among all and every one of us. Peace is not about the end of the war and dropping down their Kalashnikovs and bringing back women to the cells, to put them back in a prison. We don't want that kind of peace. We would like peace with a dignity, that human rights should be a value. The women's achievement, Afghan women's achievement shouldn't be a piece of to be talk and negotiate about even. The constitution of Afghanistan should be a frame for the further and better. If they like to bring any kind of changes, they should not ruin the constitution. They can bring more elements on that constitution to be more practical and to be more accurate, that it will get a better result for the system. Power sharing and of course representing the Afghan people, that is very crucial. If we will have a kind of republic system, same as Iran, which is on top of that republic system, there will be quota or shura for religious leader, all bunch of men, and those men will tick mark, okay, who can run for presidency, who can run for parliament? What would you expect? Would you think any liberal Democrat can achieve a seat within a parliament? No. Any woman will be able to stand for the election? Obviously, no. Because if we have that kind of model, a shura, from all, let's say, religious leader, it's just because they want to save their power, and to that power to enforce all the laws and to guide all the system the way and direction they like to, and to bring the country back to the darkness, to the age of stone. I think that I cannot call it peace. It wouldn't be a peace in Afghanistan as long as women, men, civil society, political parties, ethnic minority, religious minority will not be involved in that. We cannot achieve peace. peace process, peace is a process, peace is not a project. We cannot say like, okay, this Doha debate, I was surprised, like, okay, for the almost 6 months, nothing happened. And the last 1 year, starting from 29th of 2020 till March, we are in the March of 2021. In the last 13 months, nothing happened for the peace. Why suddenly everyone wants to come a result of that peace process? We don't like the Taliban to raise and accelerate more violence in Afghanistan. That's also not the way. We don't want to go for a war, but we have to prepare ourselves mentally as Afghan to be ready for a long-term peace, not for a short-term peace project. Short-term peace project we had during our history, during the Dr. Najib time. And I think I do have lots of respect for United Nations as a very prestigious international body. When it comes with a peace deal, they didn't achieve any peace in any country, neither in Africa, neither in Asia. We don't have any good model. They don't have any good experience of achieving peace when it comes to the conflict. This conflict is not only about women and men. This conflict is about humanity. The current conflict in Afghanistan is between modernity. The current conflict is about keeping democracy, not as a something and not as a foreign product or Western product to Afghanistan, but it's the demand of the Afghans. Some people believe I'm just sitting in a city and I was been working and I was been in power and I have no idea what things are going in the villages. But even in the village, when I asked people, what would you like? During the constitution drafting, it was like almost 18 years back from now. And after that, they want the same. They like to have a freedom of speech. They want their kids to go to school. They like to have an election. Nobody's talking about the election. Election is the only weapon that women can use as a political tool. If women not allowed to have an elected government, so it means we are not anymore a part of, we were losing the entire power of political or in politics of Afghanistan. We were losing the nation decision about peace and war or which kind of government structure they want. If a government comes by a decision of 5 to 15 people, I don't say that it will be a good partner for the international community. And I think in the last year, we had the experience that Taliban cannot be a reliable partner, neither to United States of America or neither to the people of Afghanistan, because they didn't fulfill what they've been signed. They didn't fulfill what they promised. They didn't redact the violence. They didn't start ceasefire. They didn't start even a direct peace talk with the Afghan delegation. The same, they didn't cut their tail with the international terrorist network. I'm afraid if anyone believes it's Afghanistan in 2001, everything will be easy. By another second Bonn conference, they can solve the issue, and this time not Bonn, but it will be in Ankara or Turkey or somewhere else. They're absolutely wrong. Today in Afghanistan, 22 terrorist networks are actively working, and the biggest enemy for women is war and violence, and we have to stop that. Sorry, I think I say a lot because being member of parliament, it's happening.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts so candidly and giving us a frank assessment of the peace process and the prospects. So thank you very much. I know that the audience members are very keen to ask questions of all three of you, and I request everyone to please type them into the chat, and I have already maintained a list. So we have about 20 minutes in which we can have some exchange with our distinguished speakers. I have one question that I'm going to pose And I would request each of you to please respond to that. So the question is, could you speak to us about how the new Russian and US suggested peace procedures that include other regional powers in the mix? How do you see that? How do you assess that suggestion or plan? So if in any order of the three speakers, please. Perhaps we start with Dr.
Should we?
Go ahead.
I think one of the issues which is mentioned on the document I saw, or at least Khalilzad said, is that all of our regional power or our neighboring countries should be involved in this conference, and also all the three superpower. He just mentioned China, Russia, and US. So that was what he said. And I personally believe that the main force of peace building in the country is the Afghans themselves. And if we really have united approach on the issue, we will be more successful than the Taliban, than the top-down approach to the issue. So I think each one of us has the responsibility to work with the different group of people in order to encourage people and to let them know what peace really means. It's a peace is not ceasefire. We call for the ceasefire, and that one of the issues that I forgot, ceasefire is part of that document that they shared with us. So ceasefire, comprehensive ceasefire, they say, but hopefully we will have comprehensive and sustainable peace ceasefire, because ceasefire is not peace, but I think ceasefire facilitates the people's inclusion in the peace process.
Right.
Everybody cannot be on the table, but we should find a mechanism to include people to be able to speak. Sorry.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Samar. Ambassador Rahmani has another engagement, and we would like to hear a response, please, from Ambassador Rahmani, because she has to leave in 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I would have liked Dr. Samar to continue, because I absolutely agree with her with everything she said. So just picking up where she left off, ceasefire has to be at the front load, not back load of everything that we are expecting, because while there is peace talks in Doha, there is war in Afghanistan, in village to village, province to province, city to city. So this is not the way forward for peace. And in terms of what is happening, whether in Moscow or Ankara, the government of Afghanistan is assessing right now and deliberating. They have received the invitation from Moscow, and they will publicize their position very soon regarding the invitation. But the point is that the government and people of Afghanistan always welcomed any facilitation, any work towards peace. But one thing that the people of Afghanistan have never agreed and has never worked and would never lead up to peace for sure is imposition. If there is any form of imposition of a group or a party of their concept as a and then leverages are being implemented to make that happen, that is for sure that it would not lead to peace. So we are very much welcoming all the work, all the attempts by our partners towards peace, but every discussion should not be about Afghanistan without Afghanistan. And one of the issues with a lot of these settings is that from time to time, there is assumed or somewhat real pressures that get people together to get them or pressure them to decide about Afghanistan. And much of these points was already shared by Ambassador Barakzai and Dr. Samar of how these contexts work. One thing that is for sure, we need every one of your voices to be added, because that is what works. And we want you to continue to press on and speak up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Shukria Jan, over to you for your response to the question, please.
Yes, from my point of view, Russians feel themselves very marginalized at the beginning. That's why they become more closer to Taliban than ever. And obviously, a conference in Moscow, that wouldn't be the first, let's say, official meeting between Taliban and Afghan politician. That will be like the third and fourth, or for some people will be the second. But it seems that US, United States of America, in Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Iran, they will be the key player about peace and war in Afghanistan, because each of these countries that I mentioned, they have their own interests, they have their own political points of view regarding Afghans' circumstances, and of course they have their own supporters. It's like they have their own players for the Afghanistan ground for their own goals to be achieved.
Thank you very much for your answers. I have another question that I would like to again pose to both of our two distinguished speakers, and that is, we have seen, or we've not heard very much from human rights organizations and NGOs and activists. So what I would like to ask you is, what do you consider to be the reason for the silence, and how can we include more human rights NGOs and human rights defenders into this process? So please, the question for you, both of you.
Shukria Jan, are you going to take it, or should I start?
Please, kindly, you can start.
Well, I think we were not silenced. We were quite noisy. We were making a lot of trouble and noises relating to the human rights. But remember how many people we have, how many human rights activists we have in Afghanistan, for example. Unfortunately, most of them are threatened, and they really try to leave the country. I mean, it was same for the journalists and all the other human rights defenders. So we were not silent, but we were expecting the international human rights defenders or human rights activists or centers to raise their voice. And United Nations did raise the issue on different statements, but I think it is not enough. It should be more and more, and we would like your institution and the Canadian government and all the other partners who believe on human rights to raise their voices. Because we all know who are afraid from human rights. I mean, it's not only Taliban, but we have a lot of other powerful men in the Republican side and the non-Taliban side who do not believe on human rights, who are afraid from human rights to be the fundamental issue, because they will lose the power. They will lose the legitimacy of using the religion as a tool in order to oppress women. So that is the issue. And I think if we forget the human rights, if we do not add the human rights, if we do not approach to the peace process from the human rights lens, we will be failure. And it is not happening in Afghanistan, it's happening in any other political deal around the country. I mean, you can see in Libya and Mali and Sudan and wherever. Thank you.
I myself, I was very surprised when the peace agreement between Taliban and United States was been signed in Doha. There was no single sign about human rights, not as a value, as a belief, and also regarding women's. We need, that was a kind of document between Taliban and United States, but I think it was very important the issue of human rights to be considered as a fundamental rights in Afghanistan and all other countries. But the non-governmental organizations, also their silence was kind of surprising me, because we do have lots of great partners outside of Afghanistan that they are really working for human rights, and they always been very loud. Either maybe the pandemic, because of the COVID-19, that was been largely and globally affect all kinds of activity, including demonstrations or conferences or something to share or to have their views to be loud, or probably some sorts of political deal, because United States, most of the time, they believe they can take any decision on behalf of everyone around the globe. I do understand they are superpower, no doubt, they have a lot of power, but when it comes to the principle and human rights, we are human and we do have a rights. And that's very important, that great rights of human to be acknowledged in every statement, not only for Afghanistan, but I think internationally. I'm also not very optimistic that if they will let a United Nations to lead the peace process in Afghanistan, or to facilitate or to monitor, they will also acknowledge human rights as a part of important, or to be coding that as a important elements in the document. Because most of time, same as Sima Jan believe, the interpretation of human rights for some people is going to prison. For some people, the consequence is to limitizing their authority within a family and outside. But we do believe that human rights is not only about the rights, it's about the human fundamental rights, the rights of work, the rights of marriage, the rights of equal rights among men and women, the rights of justice, that they can seek and ask for justice, and obviously freedom of expression and freedom of press also is a part of that fundamental rights, which is these days nobody is ready to talk about it. And I'm afraid everything will be on the table for the negotiation and nothing will be left at the end. So therefore, I just want to call all human lovers to stand and to be with the Afghan people, with the Afghan women, with the human in Afghanistan, and be our voice. Because from there, from that part of Asia, it's hard for us to deliver our voice, because we are experiencing different kind of government. At least those countries that they have a really democratic government, they can raise our message. And I wish all of you will be our loudspeaker when it comes the great value of human rights, democracy, election, equality. That's really what we wish to see.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last question. So I'm taking the liberty of editing a question, and I would request the speakers to give a 1-minute reply between both of you. And that is a very important question, which is with regard to what can be done to ensure that the rights of minorities in Afghanistan, minority women, Hazara women, how can we ensure the protection of those minority rights?
Well, I think we need to lobby for it, and we need to continue our advocacy. It is not only the Hazara women rights, but generally the minority rights, and Hazaras has been targeted by Taliban when they were in power, and they still do it. Last week, they killed 7 simple labor in Jalalabad. They caught them, they tied their hand, and they beheaded them and put the body in. Simple daily labor who gone to work for $5 per day, less than $5 per day. So we need to be united, all of us who believes on human rights, and then struggle and advocate for a just peace, not really silence of gun, but a just peace. Peace with accountability and justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe everyone's rights is important, and that's including Hazaras, Hindus, Sikh, Jewish, women's in general. Everyone's right is important. I think advocacy for them is important, but beside of that, unity is important. We have to be everyone loudspeaker. Whenever we see injustice, we have to stand for the justice, and there should be end for the culture of impunity, because those people they are doing such a shameful action, they always been they have a safe corner. They can go to their corner. They were never been injustice. They never court never can appeal on them anything. So we have to put the end dot to that culture, despite of who is doing that and how much powerful are they. But another threat, which is I can say it's a quite visible in the last few years. It's the ISIS type of ideas against others, against Sunni and Shias, but especially mostly since some part of Hazara Fatimians was been fighting against them in Syria and Iraq. So they are specifically are going to be a troublemaker for our beloved Hazaras sister and brother. And that one also should be stopped, because Afghanistan shouldn't be a land that anyone should go for such a kind of crimes against humanity. And I believe, of course, justice is important.
Thank you very much. We will end on that note. Justice is important indeed, and we are hoping that we're going to generate enough interest and support for this campaign and for the support of the inclusion of women's rights in Afghanistan. So I thank the audience very much for coming, and I would like to also, on behalf of everyone, thank our distinguished speakers. I will ask our distinguished speakers to stay on in the Zoom call while everybody else can please leave. I just have a couple of housekeeping matters. Before everyone leaves, I would like to let you know that we have another 3 webinars on this topic as part of the campaign. So please do join us and you will be receiving it. We will be recording this session and it will be available shortly once we've had a chance to take a look at it and passed it by our speakers. So thank you for coming, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.